This is a very exciting showcase, and I also want to thank you for coming to hear about the innovative ways in which the University of Iowa is a catalyst for economic development for the people of Iowa. We have all witnessed profound changes in the economy, in society, and in technology, and in fact, virtually in every corner of human experience. It wasn't so long ago who could have predicted a Google or a Tesla or smartwatches or driverless cars or pilotless aircraft. When you think about that, in a lifetime, in less than a lifetime, we've seen some pretty remarkable inventions and innovations. Who could have imagined how our social relationships would change and develop through Facebook and Twitter? Who would have fully realized how all of these companies and products would transform the way we work, the way we play, we interact, and do things with one another? Outside of science fiction writers, and by the way, we have lots of good writers on this campus as well, who would have imagined that we might one day print human organs or develop a capsule to swallow that would deliver medicine to just the right location at just the right time, or perhaps be on the cusp of curing diabetes and blinding eye diseases. It truly is remarkable. And while this country has a long history of innovators and entrepreneurs, who could have guessed that someone with an idea and a dream could create an app, a medical device, or an entire company from his or her own personal computer? Think about those things. Nowhere is this potential for innovation and transformation felt more powerfully than right here today in this research university. Any research university can boast the same kinds of things, and we're very pleased and proud that we have opportunities with all of you today to talk about a few of these things. Teaching, research, and service remain the foundation of our mission, but more and more universities, including the University of Iowa, are being asked to leverage their vast knowledge and expertise in the sciences, the arts, and the humanities to help create jobs, as well as a workforce for the 21st century. In response to those growing expectations, 4 years ago, I added economic development to the Office of Research. So we no longer had a vice president for research. We had now a vice president for research and economic development. I asked the office to lead our institution in translating our learning, discovery, and engagement into innovation, application, and partnership. And I'm very, very happy to report that the university has made tremendous strides since then, and you'll hear about some of these advancements shortly from Vice President Dan Reed, as well as some others who are here with us today. I think you'll see how deeply the University of Iowa is committed to economic prosperity for all Iowans by accelerating business and developing the state's workforce. Now, how are we doing that? Well, certainly by turning research ideas into innovative technologies that companies can use, by creating startups and jobs for our state, by solving business problems to enhance competitiveness statewide, and by providing business and IT training for a leading-edge Iowa workforce. Fortunately, this university isn't new to innovation. From standardized testing to recycling apps to genetics research software, our faculty and students have a great track record of taking ideas into the marketplace and as well to the world. Like you, I am very excited to see what's next in our expansion and acceleration of economic development for Iowa. So once again, let me say thank you for joining us. Thanks to everyone here who helps to make our university and our state so prosperous and vibrant. Keep up the great work. We're looking forward to seeing what's next. Thank you.
Thank you, President Mason. As a former Microsoft guy, you really wouldn't expect me to speak without using PowerPoint, so. But I promise it will be brief, nevertheless. So let me start by thanking a great many people here, and I apologize if I miss a couple names, but this is really a gathering of many of the who's who in terms of political influence, economic influence, and economic development in the region and the state. So my thanks to Senator Bob Dvorsky, to Iowa City Manager Tom Marcus, to Coralville Mayor John Lundell, and we had a great time this morning at MetaRev. I'll talk about that a bit later. To Kelly Hayworth, the Coralville City Manager, to Jack Evans, one of our former regents, to Dee Baird, the president of the Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Development Alliance, to Nancy Quellhorst, the president and CEO of the Iowa City Chamber of Commerce, and a host of other people. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have a whole bunch of university leaders here as well. So with that, let me say a few words about a story. And I want to tell you an anecdote that may not seem to have anything to do with economic development, but I think you'll see in a moment that it does. When I was a boy, there was a drag racing team called Sox and Martin. Ronnie Sox and Buddy Martin in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And they were, by almost any practical measure, for a period of 4 or 5 years, essentially unbeatable. Every time they raced, the smart money was on who would finish second, because they were going to win. And so at some point, a reporter came and asked Ronnie Martin, who was from North Carolina, what the secret of their success was. And Ronnie related in a North Carolina drawl a very simple anecdote and story. He said, my partner, Buddy, puts them together real careful, and I drive them real fast. And the grammarians in us may find the language a bit troubling, but the point is really, really clear. Most things in life are actually simple, and if they seem complicated, it's often because you really don't truly understand them. And economic development is certainly one of those things. There are complexities, there are nuances, there's ecosystem, but fundamentally it's about having a good strategy and then executing it well and executing it relentlessly in partnership with collaborators. And so I want to say just a little bit about that and invite you after I talk and you hear from a couple of other entrepreneurs to take some more time to look at the things that are about you. Because what we're really doing here is we're doing a public splash and rollout of many things that we've been quietly launching over the past several months. And they're all drawn from some experiences and insights in the roughly 2 years that I've been here. It's hard to believe, Sally, it's been 2 years already. But if you think about what's going on and the big macroeconomic forces that are shaping our future, one of them is urbanization. There are predictions that by 2050, 70% of the population will live in urban areas. And that has some important implications for us in Iowa, because we know that Iowa is experiencing the same trends. It's experiencing urbanization. The greater Des Moines area, the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area are growing. Some of our rural counties are losing population. There are big structural and economic and social implications for all of us because of that. We're also experiencing big global disruptions. The globalization and the outsourcing and manufacturing, the rise of industrial agriculture. There are big change taking place. We can't go back to the past, but we can invent the future. We can't bring a family farm back. We can't bring back inefficient manufacturing. And those of us who've lost some hair will remember when the world was a different place. I certainly remember as a boy when made in Japan was a phrase used to imply low quality, shoddy goods. Today's generation knows made in Japan is only a statement of high quality. And what happened was the Japanese embraced someone that we ignored. They embraced the work of W. Edward Deming, and they focused on manufacturing quality. And by the way, he was a Sioux City boy. And Detroit suffered to its peril. The same thing has happened over and over again. The rise of Korean conglomerates challenged Japanese hegemony. The rise of manufacturing in China has had similar effects. And China is now a high labor cost market for some manufacturing goods. And the lesson really is to continue to compete and succeed, you have to continue to innovate. And that's really about building a 21st century knowledge economy. So my message is, we may think of ourselves as local, and that's crucial, but the interdependence is really global. How we think about our interaction with our competitors and our collaborators globally affect our ability to attract and to retain talent. And make no mistake, even if you're here or in a small town in Iowa, you are competing globally for talent, because this is a global economy. And that means how we hang on to and recruit the best and brightest on the planet are key to the success of our small businesses as well as our large ones. So we're really living, as I said, in what I believe is a 21st century knowledge economy, a transition from agriculture. And I don't mean to imply that agriculture isn't important. We all like to eat. It doesn't ever go away. And it also matters that manufacturing be successful. But a lot of value creation is in a knowledge economy. And if you believe that knowledge is the coin of the realm for economic success, then people are the raw material of a knowledge economy. And that's the crucial element that research universities play, not only in transmitting knowledge to a new generation, but creating the new knowledge that allows the kind of companies that President Mason was talking about that didn't exist a handful of years ago to be multi-billion-dollar players in the global economy. That's why one of the very first things that I said when I came here, and I pulled this slide out of a talk I gave in Cedar Rapids literally weeks after I had arrived on campus 2 years ago, was that it's crucial that the university build a new compact with the state to think about economic development and applied partnerships, ways that we can create value for the state economy, that we can translate ideas into practice, and that collaboratively we can continue to build the economy. And I really believe that it is an ecosystem. And it's an ecosystem in the sense that if you think about those communities that are thriving and growing, they depend on many things. They depend on the availability of high-paying jobs, but they depend on an ecosystem that allows the people to both live, thrive, and want to be there. So if you're running a coffee shop, you're part of the ecosystem and you really matter. If you're running a restaurant, you're part of the ecosystem and you really matter. If you're teaching K-12 school, you're part of the ecosystem and you really matter. If you're a retired and experienced manager who's helping new companies grow, you really matter. And oh yeah, if you're managing capital to invest in new companies, yeah, you really matter too. All of those things are part of what allow us to thrive, and it's why I'm so excited to see all of you here, because what you really are is a slice of that ecosystem, from entrepreneurs to successful business people to investment bankers and commercial bankers to people who care about the future of research and education. We're all in this together. And so President Mason touched on this. I want to re-emphasize it again. The University of Iowa plays a critical role in the future success of the state of Iowa. And it's true of any great public research university. And all four of those words matter. Great, because a great university attracts talent that no other entity can. And that's the raw material of the future. Research, because those are the new ideas that transform the future. Public, because we're engaged in collaborative. And universities, because as I said, we create the future, we create knowledge. And that international ranking brings cachet, it brings talent, it brings opportunity. So all four of those attributes matter. Great, public, research, university. So one of the things that I did right after I arrived here is I and my colleagues spent about a year traveling the state, talking to people, because one of the things that my grandfather told me years ago was, you can learn a lot by listening. And so one of the goals was to ask questions and listen, what are the things that the university could do to most help regions across the state be competitive and be successful? And there were some pretty clear trends that emerged over and over and over again. And the fundamental one was come out and help us. Come out and be active and engaged partners. Come out of your shell, work across the state to be collaborative. And we've taken that to heart, and I'll talk a bit about that in just a moment. But that's driven the crafting of this end-to-end integrated economic development strategy that we're here to celebrate and publicly unveil today. So my commitment that I made at the outset, I'll reiterate here, is to help build startups and jobs in the state, to help solve existing business problems, to allow existing businesses to grow and thrive, and to provide expertise in business and technology to allow those businesses to grow, and equally importantly, create incentives and mechanisms for our faculty on campus and our students to translate ideas into economic opportunity, and to do that in a collaborative way across the entire state. The other thing my grandfather told me was it's amazing what you can do when you have great people around you and you don't care who gets credit. And so I have been delighted to work with David Hensley, who is the proverbial ball of fire. He is Mr. Entrepreneurship, and if you don't know that, you should talk to him about that. In addition, David Conrad. David, where are you? Wave your hand someplace here. Back there in the back, joined us, and he's driving a huge chunk of our statewide partnerships and some of the UI Partners activities associated with that. And Peter Mathis has come on board to help us engage more aggressively in community relations. So I'm really proud of these people and the folks that they have recruited to be part of our team. Now you see some banners around you, and I am mercifully, from your perspective, standing here about to be finished. But what you see are the branding of the strategy that we have unveiled in terms of our economic development engagement in the community and the state. And I want very, very briefly to say just a word or two about each one. And if you haven't gone around and talked to people standing in front of the banners, I absolutely encourage you to do so. And so let me very quickly talk about those and plant perhaps a few seeds for conversation. I'll start with UI Partners. This is a new activity that we launched just a few months ago, and it grew out of one of the things that we heard over and over and over again as we talked to people across the state. And that was for small businesses, particularly small family-owned businesses, that there was a crying need for business strategy advice to help people think about generational transition, perhaps when the children didn't want to take over the family business. Or to think about, yeah, I hate to say it as a geek, but the shortage of IT talent and expertise, because if you're a small business, often your IT support is your cousin's kid, and you may get what you pay for when that happens. And so how to work with small businesses to help them address problems is a big part about what UI Partners is about. Many of these things are done with staff and students. They're done gratis, and where we can identify opportunities to grow those opportunities in places where existing business consultants can take over, we do that. But it's fundamentally about what do we have as expertise on campus that we can bring to bear on small business problems across the state. And I should say one other thing quickly about that, that this is not just a, go back to here, is not just an Iowa City thing. One of the things that I said at the Chamber of Commerce banquet in Iowa City in January was that this was an activity that we were going to take statewide, and we are doing that. We've launched activities in Iowa City, and we'll be expanding those into Sioux City and Council Bluffs. So we want to put our money where our mouth is and engage across the whole state. One of the things that became clear to me after I talked to people was, as we think about licensing intellectual property, that we ran into a challenge. And I will talk very briefly about the two ways that discoveries from faculty-based research escape from this university. One is we license them to existing companies. So if you think about discovering a new medical treatment that involves creation of a new drug, often that means licensing that intellectual property to an existing pharmaceutical company. The other way that faculty ideas take off is for them to start a company, and you'll hear from Mount Howard in a bit about that. We tried very clearly to separate the notion of how to help faculty start companies from licensing of intellectual property, because those are different things. And UI Ventures is all about helping faculty and staff-based startups grow, thrive, and succeed. And the University of Iowa Research Foundation is now specifically about licensing intellectual property to existing concerns. Clear separation and identification of where to go. One of the other things that became clear as well for people who build startups is seeing is believing. So if you have a great idea for a company, it's one thing to tell people about it. It's another thing to show them a tangible example of the thing you want to build. And so we realized that we had unused capacity on campus in the University of Iowa Physics, Electronics, and Machine Shop. These are the same folks who build research instruments and satellites. And in the College of Engineering Fabrication Lab, together with Mark Ginsburg in town, that we could create a one-stop shop that allowed entrepreneurs to go and from soup to nuts build a hardware, software, electronics prototype of something they wanted to turn into a product. And so that is what UI Proto Labs is all about. And then finally, of course, as I mentioned earlier, there are the issues about licensing intellectual property. And I do want you to think about something that is important because it speaks to the nature of the university's research portfolio. I'm an IT guy, so I'm accustomed to people turning into billionaires starting companies in their garage. That works great in the IT business. It works great if you're a student entrepreneur. But if you want to bring a drug to market, or you want to bring a medical device to market, that's a whole different process. The timeline there is measured in years, sometimes a decade, and perhaps $50 or $100 million of investment. There are no billionaire pharmaceutical kings. They don't exist. And so the timeline and the process to bring the fruits of biomedical research to market are very different. The processes, the mechanisms to support than to allow IT or engineering or student-based entrepreneurs to flourish. And it's important to recognize those distinctions and support both because you need different mechanisms to allow them to thrive. And then finally, there is the Research Park and the whole set of partnerships there. I was thrilled to be out this morning at the park for the dedication of the second building for MetaRev. And John Lundell was there speaking as well. That's a company that grew out of experiences managing healthcare payments at the university. It's growing like gangbusters. They're up to 250 people. They broke ground for their second building, and that's what was dedicated today. And as I was kidding the CEO this morning, I fully expect to break ground for the third building soon. So I want to be back for that in just a little bit. So one of the things that we've been doing with the Research Park is thinking about the nuanced process of building an ecosystem around the nature of entrepreneurship. How we think about the facilities and space for student-based entrepreneurs, the graduation path for those, for example, into the Iowa City CoLab and the Coralville CoLab, and how we think allowing companies to graduate into larger space where they have hundreds and ultimately thousands of employees. Because every company, like an individual, moves through a life cycle. And being able to support those needs at a point where the economics work for each of those companies is absolutely crucial. It's a piece of that broader ecosystem. And I mentioned David Hensley before. He has been taking the venture school notion of Lean Launchpad, how to figure out whether your idea has legs across the state, and not only educating students, but bringing in K-12 teachers to expose them to the nature of entrepreneurship so they can take those ideas into the K-12 classroom. Because fundamentally, being an entrepreneur is not a thing you are, it's a mindset. And one of the things that's absolutely true in this day and age is you won't have one job, you won't have two jobs, you won't have three jobs, you'll have 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 jobs. And that means you have to manage your career. And inculcating that notion early into students is an essential notion of putting them onto the path to success. We've also done a lot. You remember the old advertisements for Nike to be like Mike? Well, one of the things that we're doing is celebrating entrepreneurship. We really want people to see role models and note that they can do those things, because the difference between someone who successfully built a company and someone who wants to, the majority of it is believing that you can. And that's really the key element of role models in any part of life, is believing that you can. And then finally, I just want to mention quickly some new opportunities. We're really excited about the partnership in the Research Park, about the Kirkwood Center and what that means for STEM-based education. But you've probably seen a lot in the press lately about, as President Mason mentioned, about driverless cars. We're hoping to launch, with state support, an initiative to think broadly about the nature of autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, off-road agricultural support, UAVs. There are a broad set of business, technology, policy, and economic issues around those. And with the National Advanced Driving Simulator and other expertise in policy, the partnership with companies in the region, there are huge possibilities for Iowa to be an international leader in this space. And so we're really excited about what could be there. And so finally, I just want to tell you, this strategy has been, and will continue to pay dividends. I looked this morning, this slide's already out of date. The number of invention disclosures, that is, reveals of faculty to our office about new ideas that might be patentable, this number says it's up 44%. I looked this morning, the year-to-date numbers are up 65%. People are bringing ideas. Those are the future that will define the economy of Iowa and the country. There are 24 startups in the pipeline. That's 10 new this year. We've got 50-plus businesses that David Hensley is working with development on JPEC. We've got research park companies that are employing almost 2,000 people now. And as I mentioned earlier, the Venture School is educating K-12 teachers. They've already touched about 20 school districts across the state of Iowa. And business teams continue to work to help startups assess the viability of their ideas. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of stuff that we should be proud of in the region, and it's happening not because of me, but because of you and the people you work with. So the reason for this event today was both to celebrate what's happening, but as I said, to go visible with how we're making it happen and the partnerships that make it happen. And the branding is a piece of the story, but I'll go back to what Ronnie Sox said as I began at the outset. You put them together real careful and you drive them real fast. And what we've tried to do in partnership and a lot of consultation is put it together real careful. And now working with you, we're trying really hard to drive it real fast. And that's why we're here. And with that, remember, this is a team sport, right? Sometimes you pass, sometimes you run, but it really is about the partnership and the success that comes from that. So that's our brand, that's our story, and what I want to do now is give the floor very briefly to a couple of entrepreneurs to illustrate the yin and yang, if you will, about the ways that ideas find fruition by virtue of these and other programs. One is a faculty-based entrepreneur, the other is a student-based entrepreneur. And I'm going to introduce them both now, and I'll invite them to come up one after the other and say a few words, and then at the end I'll invite Senator Dvorsky to come up and offer a few quick concluding remarks. So the first of these entrepreneurs is Dr. Matt Howard. He's the University of Iowa's John C. Van Gilder Chair in Neurosurgery. He's also the founder, along with Dr. Timothy Brennan, of Direct Spinal Therapeutics. This is a company that's developing medical implant devices for controlling neural pathways in the spinal cord, and the goal is to provide relief from pain and improve motor control. Right? So this is basic science. The second of the entrepreneurs is Alex Witters. He's a former U of I student, and he's one of the founders of Higher Learning Technologies. And if you followed any of what HLT has done, it's one of those booming companies has very quickly carved out a niche. It's the #1 selling educational app in both the Apple iTunes Store and the Google Play Store, aimed at helping people prepare for board exams in dentistry and other domains. And so these are the two great examples of basic research translated into a startup and a student entrepreneur translated into a company that's already had huge economic success. And so with that, let me turn the floor over to Matt.
Dan, thank you very much. I don't have any slides. I'm just going to make a few short comments. So I'm chair of neurosurgery, and just in the way of background, I came here back in 1993, right out of my residency program at the University of Washington. Prior to that, I was a medical student at the University of Virginia. My life and experience as an entrepreneur and inventor started back when I was a medical student. So I've been inventing devices it's always with friends and colleagues for the last 30 years or so. And my comments are really focused on what's special about Iowa. And the reason I came here from Seattle is because the basic research capabilities, in my case having to do with human subjects, is remarkable and actually second to none. We have amazing university hospital. We have researchers in all the related fields that I'm interested in hearing and pain research, who are world-class, and it's been world-class for a long time. And when I came here, I focused on the basic research work, which means competing for NIH funding and recruiting top talent to try to work with you to build these programs. And it's not easy competing for NIH funding, but the University of Iowa is extremely competitive in those areas. And I think that the issues or variables or factors that allow you to be competitive for NIH funding are actually now becoming competitive for industry funding. So when I was on the coast, you have access to two variables that are less accessible when you're here in terms of face-to-face interaction. That's capital and management. And if you're doing early stage work, you need access to both, and they want to see you. They want to be able to see how you're doing. They want to check on you all the time. It's kind of like a lab meeting. So what's happened since I've come here is that the world's changed. All these things like Google and all that's changed, but for us in our research portfolio, it is Skype and Illuminate. We have lab meetings in our group 3 times a week, and our participants are in Australia, New Zealand, China, Chicago, throughout the United States, the UK, and Germany. And you have to have these face-to-face meetings to build these products. The product is either something special that you're inventing to discover how the brain works or how a device works. So our spinal cord modulation program came out of an interesting idea that one of the residents actually came up with. And because I've been doing it for a long time, you vet hundreds of these ideas and you say, wow, that could click. That has a big market. It looks like if we could, the IP position could be strong. There are a lot of reasons why this could be one of those rare gems that could really work. Now, what in Iowa would have been missing before is management expertise and capital, but because we can interface with people anywhere in the world, that is much less of a barrier. And the foundation did a great job. You got great leadership at the foundation. These people get it. They're really pushing the envelope. That increase in disclosures, that's a reflection of the buzz that's going on here. And they get it. So they hired an entrepreneur in residence. I'm saying med tech, I've been in it for a long time. It's tough. Nobody, if you're not in med tech, you don't know med tech. But there are people now who are national consultants, who you bring them in as visiting entrepreneurs, and they'll figure it out. And the core asset here is our research enterprise and our access to patients and this great value, but you have to cross all the T's and dot the I's. And I credit the success so far of our new startup to the fact that you're so open-minded, you get it, that we have to pull in all the assets, and I think it's going to be an incredible time for the University of Iowa to translate historically what has been great basic research in human subjects and human disease to a massive economic engine. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So it's definitely an honor to be here with so many people who've helped us along the journey. And so today I'm going to tell you guys basically how we got started at Higher Learning Technologies. I'm going to tell you where we are looking at going with Higher Learning Technologies, how the university's played a vital role in getting us to where we're at, and then I'll close from there. So to get started with Higher Learning Technologies, basically I was in dental school at the University of Iowa, and I was studying for my licensure exam. I had to use paper flashcards to study for the most important test of my entire life. And this made no sense at all to me. See, I had a smartphone that's the exact same size, and I didn't know why I had to have this giant box of 1,500 paper flashcards, and people would literally haul these boxes around. So they would bring these to lunch with them, and I'd see people pulling them out. It just made no sense at all. So I have a bit of a sales background. So I actually called up the president of the company who did that. And I talked to him 5 or 6 times, begging him to make this. You need it for a smartphone. And he claimed because they had it, basically long story short, he claimed it was a dumb idea. And it made no sense to me. Talked to a few other publishing companies. They told me it was a dumb idea also. My parents also told me it was a dumb idea. So I, of course, decided to set out and create this in partnership with the University of Iowa Dental School and many talented people in this room who've helped us to get to this point. So now, this is fast forward 2 years, actually 2.5 years later from when the idea was originally come up with. And we have 500,000 users with our product. We have 1.6 million practice questions being gone through every single week. We have a team of 30 people in-house, and we have another, 12 people who are contracting full-time with us. So it's really explosively grown. We feel we're making a difference in the world. We had $1 million raise for our investment. So it's really been amazing, kind of the path that we've taken to get to the point we're at right now. And it's definitely a blessing to be in this position. And so now looking forwards, and like I said, people have told me I've been crazy since the beginning doing this. And so my goal was always to make a billion-dollar company out of this. And it's not all about the money. It's really, I view it kind of as a scorecard of creating value, and then some of that value can come back to the organization. And what we really want to do to get to that point, we want to make an education platform. So yes, we have started out with test prep, and we make it so people can study anytime and anywhere with their smartphones the way students want to learn in an efficient, convenient way. But we want to take those same tools and that learning engine that we are developing, and we want to make it so that way teachers can be able to teach through their classes easier. We want to make it so that way employers can be able to teach people better. We actually are making one right now for our organization that has everyone's face in it because we've been growing so quickly, that has little trivia and things inside of it. So we view there's all sorts of applications for this learning engine that we're creating at Higher Learning Technologies. So the university has played a vital role, and we certainly would not be here today without their help. Number one, they've helped us with the research park with our accommodations. So we had no building. Componica, and Steve Mitchell very graciously helped us out from the beginning. And along with the university, we were able to get an office in there when we had no money. And so that's something that the company could have never been started without that happening. And now we're at the BioVenture Center, and it's truly an amazing place to have our team at. So then the university also helped us with content. So we've been able to get some partnerships to be able to tap into the wealth of knowledge that's there, the treasure chest of content that the University of Iowa has. We've been able to tap into through the dental school, through the nursing school, and through other arrangements that we've been able to work out to really tap into that resource and be able to leverage it through this infrastructure and learning engine that we've created. Then through the connections, the university has really, so many people in this room have actually played a role in helping to get us to where we're at. And the university has been vital because I didn't know anything about business when this started. I was in dental school. And there's so many people who've connected, who've helped to mentor me along the way, who've helped to introduce us to people to raise capital. So it's truly been a blessing to get all of those connections. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly as an entrepreneur, the university helped to get us cash. So they actually got us, they helped to work with us to get in on some of the grants and different loans and different things to help get our business off the ground because we couldn't get started without that. And so the university, without them, I can truly say that there's no chance that we'd be here at this point. So we're very grateful for that. And to close, I just want to say, and this is something that I say often, that entrepreneurship really is a community sport. And all of the talent that's in this room and all the people who've helped us and is helping other people and who we hope to also be able to help as we go forwards. It's something that I feel that there really can be great things created right here in Iowa City. There's been lots in the past, and we feel that at Higher Learning Technologies, we can help change the way that the world learns. Thank you.
It's kind of hard not to feel that enthusiasm, isn't it? That's why we're here. Entrepreneurship is about turning dreams into real economic value and impact. And we have all the skills, all the assets, all the partnerships to make that happen. What Alex said is absolutely true. You can do it here, you can do it any place. Why not do it here? And with that, let me turn the floor over to Senator Bob Dvorsky for a few closing remarks. Please take advantage of the opportunity to have some food, look at the displays, and talk to people. They're anxious to talk to you about what they're doing. Senator Dvorsky.
Thank you. I hate to be the last person between you and the great hors d'oeuvres here and displays, but I have a couple brief points here. I'm State Senator Bob Dvorsky, been in the Iowa House and Iowa Senate over 20 years, so I feel like I kind of speak for the Iowa General Assembly today. I will note there are two of my colleagues here, at least I saw two, Representative Sally Stutzman and my representative in the back, Dave Jacoby. So thank you for coming here also. Thanks to President Mason and Vice President Reed for the opportunity to do this, and thanks for all the work they've been doing. It strikes me as listening to Dan Reed, it's a little different style, but a lot of the substance sounds like former Vice President for Research, what was his name, Skorton, I believe. So thank you for that. If anybody knows David Skorton, that's pretty high praise. So thank you for your efforts and everything you've done here. I guess on behalf of the Iowa General Assembly, I'd like to thank the University of Iowa for all their economic development efforts. Oftentimes, I don't think you hear that from Des Moines. You go in Des Moines and sort of fight with everybody to get the last nickel and dime to support the university, but your efforts here in economic development should be noted and should be thanks for everything you've done in different areas. And I have different areas to talk about to thank you. First of all, obviously research. The University of Iowa is one of the top 30 public research institutions in the United States, and the research here is just top flight. And for a small state like the state of Iowa, having such a university is just amazing. So thank you all for that. Statewide reach, and Dan's talking about that, having more of a statewide reach. One of the problems we have in Des Moines is the University of Iowa City. Is this the University of Iowa City? No, it's the University of Iowa. And there's always this, what have you done for Sioux City lately? What have you done for Council Bluffs? What have you done for the rest of the state of Iowa? And University of Iowa is recognizing that, and they're all over the rest of the state are working on that because that is part of their statewide mission, I believe. So thank you for that. Entrepreneurs, and I see about 3 or 4 who are actually here. David Hensley and his good operation for all these years. Thank you for that. Dr. Matt Howard and what he's been doing for a long time. And I can think of one other who's, I don't think here, but he's sort of a different entrepreneur, Mark Ginsberg, and the thing he's doing and working on. So there's all kinds of them around this area, and we need to cultivate them and to work with them as we're doing. And one last group that hasn't really been talked about a lot here, but they're sort of a foundation for all the rest of this. That's Vice President Robillard and his crew over at UIHC, and the things they've been doing here is amazing. And I'm fortunate to have a tour the other day of the new Papa John Biomedical Discovery Building. By the way, the state of Iowa put $30 million into that. I don't think Mr. Papa John did that, but he put some money into it. So the things they're going to be doing there and what they're going to be doing across the campus at UIHC are just amazing. And I think that's something we also need to promote and thank. So I think this is kind of a celebration today, so I think everyone should be, move forward and say what a good job the University of Iowa is doing to move economic development forward in this state, and thank you.
So please enjoy, and know also that downstairs outside is the University of Iowa's Mobile Museum. It's been traveling the state. We've had about 35,000 visitors. It's a chance to see a piece of Iowa history. Take advantage of that on your way out, but please enjoy. Thank you.